Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. Today with Mr. Barry Smith. Hi, Barry.
Thank you very much, Mark, for having me
Well,
here.
we're glad to have you here. Barry is a new docent at our museum. We're going to ask him how he found the museum. He grew up in Massachusetts, so we're going to learn a little bit about that from him. But fascinatingly, Barry spent 30 years working with NASA on spaceflight instruments, integrating them into different payloads, including this beautiful one-of-a-kind payload on the green screen behind us here, Barry, the Hubble Space Telescope that we talked about this week already. It's launched 33 years ago, and this is one of the parting shots taken of it.
It was a big part of my life.
And we're going to hear about that big part of your life. We're going to see some really cool pictures of the Hubble Telescope that Barry brought out of some of his archives there, and we're going to listen. Barry, you were involved as an engineering technician. And we'll hear a little more about that, but he's a solar system ambassador through the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
But what you also dealt with a lot of things around the pad, and you had some interesting pictures of some of the pad debris that was thrown out from a launch, kind of in concert with what happened in Texas with the Starship there to see how violent these rocket launches are. And he also worked at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. So we're going to see some pictures of all that coming up. And I'm going to we'll get into Barry just a second, but I'm going to remind everybody that our auction, Barry, is this weekend, Saturday, where we have over 400 items of memorabilia is going to be auctioned off. There you've got a crew signed 51L by those faithful astronauts. Judy Resnick took Tom Selleck to space up there with her, as did all women. There is a Krista McCullough signed STS 51L postal cover and just amazing things. That's an actual rocket you can have impress your friends in your space cave there, Barry, in the upper right for 30 grand. General Dynamics rocket there. So anyway, it's at noon this Saturday, online only. We'll devote a lot of tomorrow's show to that.
May I add something to that? Something I saw today for the auction.
Yes.
I saw something that was done back in 1943 by von Braun, and it has his signature on it.
That's right.
And I mean, it's done in German, and there's some prints there. I mean, this thing was fabulous.
You've been looking at the auction. That's actually from Peenemünde, the original rocket pad, in von Braun's notes in it, and that has those similar items have sold up to $11,000. So if you could get it for $2,000 or $3,000, that would be a bargain.
Wow, that's a deal.
Well, our auction, Marty, I'm going to let you do the toggle switches there for now. So we're going to get into Barry here. You may take that off and make us bigger, Marty, if you would, please. Marty Winkle, my co-producer. Barry, this is our 802nd episode of Stay Curious. It's a real pleasure to have you on here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up, and how'd you get interested in space?
Well, I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and I grew up in a great little town called Westwood, Mass. Great little town on the suburbs of Boston, and ever since I was in third grade, I was at Pine Hill School. I remember having three gentlemen from Natick Labs come in and give us a lecture on what they did at the Natick Labs and expressing to us what they did for NASA. So that popped my interest.
You're 9 years old, and we've all know these adults when you're in our adult life and we go and talk places. You never know who you're going to reach. But here these men reached you, huh? That's interesting.
Third grade.
And then we were talking earlier that your dad encouraged you a lot to.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story where I was outside. I'm a little guy. I'm about 8, 9 years old, and my dad's inside watching the launch of Shepard, and so I'm out there playing. My dad runs out to get in the house. So we all run in the house and watch the first launch of Alan Shepard into space, and just watching that as a little guy. Just
May 5th, 1962.
I mean, that was some really fantastic times of my younger age.
Yeah, it's the days of innocence there, chasing crickets and butterflies and learn how to fish, all that sort of stuff. In Massachusetts, were you near where Robert Goddard started this whole thing in the 1920s in Auburn?
You know, if I knew about Robert Goddard being in Worcester, Mass, I probably would have been out there so many times. And with my experience today, to think of what he has done for the space age and our history when it comes to Robert Goddard. I mean, his first launch vehicle off his aunt's farm in Auburn, Mass. Which is now a golf course.
Mm-hmm.
But the golf course has been kind enough to leave a memento where Robert Goddard launched his first.
Yeah, we've seen that, a little stone pylon there to mention that. Yeah. Have you seen it? Played golf there?
I haven't played golf there, no, but someday when I get back to Massachusetts, probably this summer, I'll be going out there and taking a photograph.
We'll put that on the bucket list there. Barry, what's fascinating about your biography here is he's an expert welder, and he just hasn't welded iron fences. You've welded naval battleships, tankers, those huge tankers that bring us oil from the Middle East, right? That's part of your career.
LNG tankers, which takes the gas from the ground and cools it into a liquid, and then we can take it and ship it over to like where Germany is needed, Europe, different locations. And so we take that gas and these huge tankers deliver it over into Europe or wherever it's needed.
Well, that's a highly skilled welding job there. Talk about how you got into that and how it served you well through your life.
Well, when I got out of high school, I went on a little trip with my buddy Larry Clark and wound up in Houston, Texas. And of course, we know Houston, Texas being the oil refineries. So I got into the oil refinery, and they assigned me to a TIG welder, welding the pipes down in the refineries down in Roman Haas. And so I was part of that, and that's where I started my welding career before I returned back to Massachusetts, and I was a MIG welder, production MIG welder at the Quincy shipyard in Quincy, Mass.
That's a skill that's in high demand still in the rocket industry.
And then on top of with the science that's gone with it, the vacuum, using the vacuum welders. I mean, doing some fabulous things with metallurgy and the welding, the friction welding that they're doing today. It's still growing, still used highly today, and it's a great career as being a welder. It taught me very, very well and led me into metallurgy when I get to California and non-destructive testing, which helped me again with my career coming into NASA several years later.
And then you spent, you were 20 years involved with the Hubble, involved with all 5 Hubble upgrade missions there. And were you going to tell us about that? You even had some time with the James Webb.
6 years.
And we'll have you back. There you are with some buddies there at the demate device out there at the center there. You're on the far right there.
Yeah, that's a return mission from Edwards Air Force Base. The shuttle is just returned to Kennedy, and so we decided to run out there and take a look at it because we had never seen the shuttle arrival from Edwards Air Force Base. And we wanted to see how this was done.
And your friends there, you still in touch with them?
Larry Bennett, I think that he's just retired from me. And remember Tom, I'm forgetting Tom's last name right now, but what a fabulous engineer. I mean, you want to talk about people fabulous people to work with. There's one guy that was terrific.
Tell me what you were talking about earlier, that the neglected people of the space program, in your opinion, as we look at this handsome picture of you there and shuttle in the background.
I always would like to point out that there's a lot of people that work for NASA that deserve a lot of credit. Now, one group is called contamination control. And I've always said that these people are the foundation. And you take your parts and you bring them into contamination control, and their responsibility is making sure that all your hardware, all your equipment, or whatever is going into space is clean. This is your foundation. Without these guys, you can't get the job done properly. As NASA says, you only have one chance. And working on the Hubble Space Telescope, if that hardware isn't clean, then you're going to have problems. A second group are the designers. You have a problem with your equipment that's being launched. You turn around and you go to the designers and say, hey, we have a problem. You give it the problem to the designer, and I don't know how they do it, Mark. I do not know how they do it, but they just use their imagination. They look at the problem and they're able to fix it.
Well, it pops into my head the designers during Apollo 13 taking the carbon dioxide filter scrub, that the filters didn't match. The command module was round and the lunar module was square, and without a fax machine and just dictating it over the phone, the designers told them how to build that out of duct tape and spare parts. And you know what I'm talking about. It looked exactly like they had it in Houston when they made it in space. And I thought that was really a huge accomplishment of Apollo 13 there. But yeah, designers and the contamination experts there, unsung heroes. We hope to talk to some of them on our program here. We're talking with Barry Smith. We're going to get into the buoyancy lab and then some of the debris around a shuttle pad. Marty, I want to go to the smaller picture. Mantech is a huge contractor out there, and you spent many years with them, right?
Many years. I first worked with Mantech, or at that time was NSI, Northrop Services Incorporated. And I had worked out at the Navy War College and doing a land-based facility for NSI. Soon afterwards, I was transferred down to Goddard Space Flight Center, and NSI turned to Mantech International. It's a great company. Owner, Mr. Peterson, what a terrific guy. Great guy to work with, very giving, but at the same time, you got to do your job.
Yeah.
Terrific guy.
Seems like great companies that people know who the leadership are.
Yes.
They're down in the trenches with the workers there.
Yeah, he's there.
We've got, we're going to talk about the Hubble, and this beautiful, beautiful picture kind of sets it up. Barry's going to talk about some of the payloads he dealt with, what his role was. We're going to get a little taste of that integration in there. And once in a while, you got to meet some famous people, and that is the
Duke of Edinburgh.
Yes.
He and the Queen came to visit us at the Goddard Space Flight Center, and he's there with Mike Massimino and John Grunsfeld.
All right. Massimino's on the right, Grunsfeld's there on the left. Some sort of integration equipment there that you dealt with in between them there.
That looks like the batteries for the Hubble, in which Mike Massimino is explaining to the Duke. I got to once say something about Mike Massimino. The guy is a funny guy, and it's not intentional, and he just can come up with the funniest things. And I swear to God, I'm looking at this photograph right now, and I'm sure that Mike is saying something really funny to the Duke of Edinburgh, and you can see John Grunsfeld's expression at the same time. I was getting a kick out of Mike Massimino.
like Grunschel said, this is the Duke, right? In there. Massimino, of course, we're going to see other pictures of him, was on the Big Bang Theory sitcom on the space station with Wolowitz up there and a Russian. And he has a podcast with Garrett Reisman called Two Funny Astronauts that I've listened to on and off. And they just kind of say, what we got to talk about today. And off they go. So.
And you notice that Mike, how tall Mike is.
Yes.
Mike is a very, very tall astronaut. In comparison, when you see John Grunsfeld. John Grunsfeld is just about my height.
Oh, really? Yeah. He looks,
so
okay,
Mike is
tall,
quite a bit taller.
Well, we kind of teased everybody, Barry, with this photograph of you about to get mowed over by, I don't know, a Fred Flintstone boulder or what's going on there. But when you told me what was going on here, it kind of typifies the career you've had, I think, in a way. So what is this behind you and what's going on?
Well, I'm now assigned to the robotics research and development. And what you're seeing behind me is a mock-up of an asteroid. We built the asteroid to mimic an asteroid being captured robotically. And it's almost like a claw that comes and captures the asteroid, holds it in position for mining. The astronauts would come out and mine the asteroid. So we built that. It's a mock-up of an asteroid at the robotic research lab in Greenbelt, Maryland.
And they had devices to grapple it to see what would be simulating.
Yeah, it was really fascinating to watch it because they have the robotic arm that's able to come out from the spacecraft and reach out and grab the asteroid and pull it back in. And then that way they have other instruments that are coming out to start mining and pulling the different minerals out of the asteroid.
And what was your role in this?
I was a technician, and whatever the engineers, scientists needed me to do, maybe work on the robots, electrical or mechanical parts, I would help get that research and test completed properly, safely too.
It's very interesting. Now, Barry, when we discover an asteroid that big that's solid gold or silver, I think we're going to have a new type of gold rush to space. And I'm not just kidding, tongue-in-cheek. We're going to discover something that entrepreneurs are going to want to get off this planet and retrieve it and become rich. And I think that's sort of what the billionaires are getting poised for, the ability to go out and bring back a huge diamond in the rough.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were going to name the asteroid after me, and my wife would absolutely love it.
We'll do that. There's a few Smiths out there around the world, but we'll call it the Barry Smith. So, well, very interesting. We're going to move on now to the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, the MBL. Tell us a little bit how big that is and where that's located and what astronauts do there.
When I started with NASA, I was given the job to go to the MBL. Now, the MBL I went to was in Huntsville, Alabama. I never have been to the Kennedy site, which I know is far bigger. And
JSC, you mean?
Johnson.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Johnson Center. And that MBL is far bigger and much, much better. Safety-wise, much the same thing, where every morning that we were making a dive, we had to be checked out. Where they would do our blood pressure, take our temperature, some minor things.
Were you one of the divers?
One of the divers.
Okay.
Yeah. And so my assignment would be to dive and assemble the mock-up of the shuttle, as well as put in all the instruments that the astronauts would be rehearsing on or practicing on for their actual mission to the Hubble.
We're going to see some close-ups of those type of equipment there. I don't know who that astronaut there, but that's Mike Massimino again.
Massimino,
I meant. Mike Massimino. Again, he lives in New York City, Manhattan. He posts a lot of stuff on Facebook almost daily.
I think he's a professor at Columbia.
There you go. One detail I like is look at the left wrist has a blue ring and the right wrist has a red ring. And that's how they match up their gloves. I learned that by reading. So you have a story behind this of Mr. Grunsfeld.
Well, it's actually the suit. I was a rookie. I was a rookie diver, and I had no idea what I was getting into. And so the first day I get to the NBL, I go walking up to the deck, the top deck, and I'm walking around and I see the pants or the bottoms of the spacesuit sitting on the deck. And, you know, my mom and dad always taught me, pick up your clothes, never leave your clothes on the floor. So I'm walking up there and I see the pants, space pants on the deck. And I can't figure what's going on here. I'm working for NASA here at NBL. 15 minutes later, astronaut Story Musgrave comes up, and he goes and he sits on the floor and he scoots himself into the bottom of the pants, and that's, I see what's going on. The pants are on the floor deliberately so that it's easier for the astronauts to get into the bottom of the pants. Two guys then will come over, help him stand up, and that's when they finish dressing him off in a little cradle. And so they'll put the top on and lock it into the pants and the suit, the gloves and the booties. And then they drop the astronauts into the NBL, into the water. And
it's dangerous still. I mean, there's an element of danger there, just like going into space, correct?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There are 3 divers assigned to each astronaut. At least that's when I was diving. They have three divers assigned, and that's what their job is to be with the astronaut. And if they get in trouble, they launch onto that astronaut and help him out. Maybe getting him up out of the water, or he gets trapped by something that he's working on. Their assignment is to concentrate on the astronaut.
You remember any moments like that you had to jump to action?
No. Okay. I was not assigned to an astronaut. I was more assigned to the items that were in the shuttle bay, such as if we're working on a mock-up of the COS instrument. And the astronauts would open up the shipping container for it, and the astronauts would have difficulty in getting the mock-up out of the shipping container. We would have to then get that container out of the pool, down below into the shop, get the repair done while the astronauts are out having their lunch, and then get it back into the pool, so that they can continue doing their practice runs underwater. So I was more assigned to the payload or the mock-ups.
Talking with Barry Smith here. Barry, I understand that there's a Grunsfeld again with Massimino. There's like a ratio of 7 hours of practice for every hour of a spacewalk or more.
I tell you, those astronauts work hard. They really do.
It's more than 7 hours for every hour. It's something else.
I don't know what the time is, but those guys are working hard, and they work all day. You figure that these astronauts are up at 5:30 in the morning, and they're up, dressed, showered, have their breakfast, and then down, ready to work 7 for a meeting of what their day is going to be like, and they're probably out working at 8, and they don't get out and they don't get home until like 10 o'clock at night. And so it's a rough day for them.
I know Kathy Thornton. I've heard her talk about her career, and I think she has 4 wonderful missions. She did a spacewalk. Kathy Thornton famously threw off the first Hubble solar panels. You remember that? You ever meet her?
Yes, I have.
she said that was being an astronaut. The hardest part was training in the neutral buoyancy lab. She said she couldn't eat enough food to keep weight on her. It was so exhausting working in there.
As a diver,
tell us about her and what.
I've only met Kathy during the missions. I really didn't go up and talk to her. I knew who she was. I knew what her function is and what she had to do. Kathy was a great lady to work for and getting her ready for her mission. Absolutely right when it comes to food, because I was when I got out of the tank 4 hours into the dive, I was hungry and I could eat big time. Have a fabulous lunch down at the cafeteria down at Huntsville.
Oh, do they? Good.
Oh, they have a great place.
Went there and remember about that. Well, we're moving from the neutral buoyancy lab. We got a picture of Scooter in here that's a little out of sequence, but there's the commander of the last Hubble upgrade mission, STS-125, training there. You were around him a bit, I believe.
Yeah.
No. Tell us. You saw him. He's an excellent flyer, folks. And if you don't know, in the movie Top Gun, he was the flyer that scathed down the aircraft tower there. But you saw him perform some of his fine aviation skills.
I was out at Kennedy, and I was walking towards the launch pad, and as you were saying, Scooter was the actual pilot on Top Gun, and he was in his trainer jet. And as I'm saying, I was walking towards the launch pad, and all of a sudden I hear this jet approaching the launch site, and I'm saying to myself, what is this jet doing? And as it's approaching the launch pad, it almost seemed to me like it stopped right over the launch pad. And all of a sudden, that thing just lit up and took off like a bat. And that was one of the things that I remember about Scooter. And a couple of years later, I met him at a Hubble anniversary party, and I just had to ask him how he did that. Well, he never told me how he did it, but he did say, he just looked at me and smiled and said, well, boys will be boys. So it was a great way to meet Scooter and his, but what a fantastic pilot.
That's
what
a good
he could
story,
do.
Barry, yes.
What he could do with that jet.
Scott Altman, one of the great astronauts of our Corps, quite a character too. He likes being notarized, and who doesn't, on there. But you had some wonderful pictures of some of the debris out at one of the pads. So you can tell us which one, in light of the disaster of the SpaceX Super Heavy that didn't have any flame trenches out there for over 10 million pounds of thrust. Barry, you're going to take us through here a little bit about what can happen at our pads. Which pad is this, Barry?
Well, I'm out. This is a photograph of me out at the 39A launch pad. 39A launch pad. And it was right after a shuttle launch to the ISS, where it was taking the last segment of the ISS to assemble it together, be part of the ISS, which means it's going to be an extra heavy load for the shuttle to lift. It's going to take an extra amount of thrust for it to get out the launch pad. In this launch, being it's so heavy, gives it that over 1 million plus pounds of thrust. And as the thrust from the shuttle and the rockets are going into the channel and directing it out into the ocean, it ripped a lot of the fire brick off the side of the trench, which is really hard to do. But I mean, that gives you a perfect idea of the power of those thrusters and what it can do to a launch pad. And what happened with SpaceX there a couple of weeks ago, wow, without a trench, it can really do some damage.
There's the fence in the background we're going to see up close there. even it got ripped down.
Yeah, all the fire brick coming from the trench really did a number on the launch pad.
Coming out of that trench there. And so it takes time to repair all this, and there's another look at that wall in the trench there.
Yeah, that's the trench that the thrust will go through, and it tore a lot of that fire brick off the wall.
Huh.
So that's a lot of power.
Yeah,
1.8 million pounds of thrust.
Yes. Each SRB, I think, does that. It's what's the total thrust off that pad, Marty? Wait, I can consult my scroll here and tell us there. But can you believe that SpaceX did their heavy booster without any flame trenches, Barry? That seems like an engineering faux pas to me.
Yeah, that's a definite overlook by SpaceX.
4 million pounds at liftoff, okay, is what the shuttle was. The Saturn V was almost 7, and this 33 engines on that super heavy could maybe be as much as 16 million pounds of thrust, they say.
Wow, incredible. Yeah. I also noticed on that SpaceX launch that they had a 6-pack of a tank farm.
Yes.
And which it was not far away from that launch pad. And I was saying, oh my God, isn't that a little bit dangerous? Mm-hmm. So there are things that SpaceX, hey, I applaud. I've got to applaud SpaceX with everything they've done. But this is a little oversight, as you're saying, on their part.
Well, they'll solve it. That's what billionaires do, throw money at it and get it solved there. So there's a look at our launch pads. The Artemis probably had some similar damage. Many of us have seen pictures of that.
I heard the tower got damaged.
Yes, tower got damaged. It's outside the VAB. They're actually going to finish the new one because the next Artemis 2 launch is not going to be scheduled until November 2024, a year and a half from now. All right. Barry, we're going to now go into some of what you did and some of your comrades, their colleagues there. Sort of, what does a guy like Barry do? Okay, he puts on a bunny suit and gets some cleaning materials and cleans, and not use per se, but some people do. So what's going on here and you're talking about the contamination experts.
Well, yeah, I'm working on the Hubble Space Telescope, which is an optic instrument, and this has to be super clean. And what we're seeing here is a contamination control engineer, technician, and he's got a black light. That's where you see the blue reflection off of the side of the instrument, and he's wiping down the instrument, making sure that there aren't any particulates on that part of the spaceflight instrument.
That's the Hubble hull, if you would, right? Outside.
Yeah, and this is, again, the group of people that I are saying that are overlooked. Mm-hmm. These are the people that keep the instruments and parts really clean and preparing it for space flight.
Which this was a delayed mission because of Challenger. It was actually in storage for almost how many years was it stored after the 86 tragedy? At least 3 years.
3 years in storage, yeah. And you figured that it was in storage, and it's in a clean room, room storage area, but still, I mean, they're going to go to the extent, especially for the Hubble, to keep it clean, so that no particulates would float off onto the lens of the Hubble.
Typical day in Barry's world there. Yeah. This is the SSPF, is it? Space Station Processing Center? Or?
It looks like we're lifting the COS instrument and getting it ready for launch. And behind it, you can see
the optical instruments, the CoStar.
Correct. The size of a telephone booth.
Yeah.
And behind it,
remember that telephone booth.
Behind it, you can see that gold. It looks like a gold.
That
is a shipping container for the wide field camera. in which we would pick up.
There it is in the foreground.
And so what we're looking at right now is the container for the ACS to be launched to the Hubble. So we would pick up the ACS and drop it inside that instrument, inside that container, seal it up, and lock it into place. And this is where a lot of the astronauts, I'm not sure whether or not there was astronauts on the top of that scaffold, but
could be, huh?
Yeah, it could be. But we would put it into those shipping containers. There's a couple astronauts right there watching us put the instrument into that container and locking it into place. They would have to come in and watch us drop it into the box and lock it into place, because when they're in space, they're going to have to unlock it.
Right, I got you.
Pull it out by hand and then install it into the Hubble.
In weightlessness, though, a little bit easier, but
easier.
Fascinating. That's what integration is right there.
Yes. You can see that there's a luminoid draped around. It looks like it's the FSS. I'm not sure. I can tell by the sling, but that looks like it's the FSS, the Flight Support System, and it's bagged in luminoid. The bag is used for shipping and keeping particulates off during the shipping. But then again, as I'm saying to these people from contamination control, they have that tough job of going back now and still wiping down the FSS to make sure it's clean.
What do they use? Isopropyl?
Isopropyl.
Really?
Yeah, isopropyl was used most of the time. A vacuum cleaner for if they will use a black light and go over the whole instrument and make sure that every little speck is removed from that instrument.
I'm fascinated with what Barry Smith's revealing here about processing this important payload launched 33 years ago this week by STS-31. Kind of like this picture, there's even a NASA photographer on the other side of the tow motor there.
Okay.
Kind of an innocuous looking picture, but it's part of the daily flow of what was happening back 15 years ago with the Hubble, getting it up. Not 15 years ago, but yeah.
What we have here is transportation from Space Flight Center down to Kennedy. Is a constant move on a daily basis. Something else that is, you pointed out, the cameraman. A cameraman is on all of our everywhere. May it be our launches, watching the astronauts, watching contamination control. If I'm installing something into the COS instrument, I've got a cameraman right over my shoulder watching me install it. Maybe a bolt or electronic piece, or it's a constant turnover all day long. I got to give credit to those photographers too, because without them being there, we're not recording problems or any progress that we're doing. All we have to do, if there's a problem, look at the photograph, and it solves a lot of problems.
See, I didn't know that was a job out here. I wouldn't have worked for the Associated Press as a photographer. I may have been following you around, Barry.
It's a great job. It's a terrific job.
It's a terrific job, yeah, I'm sure. Well, and then here are some of what are we looking at?
Okay, these are a lot of the tools that are made for a space mission. And one of the astronauts that I worked with before he became an astronaut was Paul Richards.
There he is.
Who was instrumental in making the pistol grip tool. And you're able to set the amount of rotations as well as the torque, and it has a readout to it. I enjoyed so much working with Paul Richards during the neutral buoyancy before he became an astronaut. And
oh, really? You guys were teammates kind of in NBL, huh?
I really put out a lot of salute to Paul Richards and what he's done for NASA.
Hope to meet him someday at the Space Center. Marty, as we look at this, the white looks like your familiar drill kind of
Mm-hmm.
on there. Now you're saying that these are every nut, every nut on a bolt is turned just so much, and everything's recorded, right?
Correct.
And the data on there.
Right.
That's just amazing.
It is.
How much has this translated into our Ace Hardware Home Depot tool world?
Well, actually, that's a contract that's that NASA gives off to these different companies, and these companies like Black and Decker will make your battery-operated tools, and that's where we pick up the PRT, which is a battery-operated tool that NASA requested.
BRT, battery operated tool. There's an acronym for you.
Power ratchet tool, PRT.
Okay. PRT, power ratchet tool. Okay. All right. Cool. Love it.
Paul Richards did a really terrific job in inventing and getting that operational.
Marty and I were talking about power tools on a Stay Curious a couple weeks ago, right, Marty? And I questioned that there's even any tools left that would have an electrical cord on it.
Yeah.
And Marty, you said you saw them and assured me there were still power cords that plug into the wall.
I bought one because I got tired of replacing batteries and losing them. So I got a cable on them.
All right, good. Yeah. Well, let's get this is the lower deck, mid deck with 3 astronauts strapped in, 4 at the top. They don't see nothing going up. I always thought that'd be pretty weird to be just going into space at thousands of miles an hour, and I at least want to see where I'm going to hit or crash into. But
can you imagine the vibration that they must experience just from the thrust?
Yeah,
the engines.
Absolutely.
Incredible.
And thank you. That's a rare picture. We don't see many pictures like that. There's a beautiful launch. And now let's talk a little bit about this repair, the Hubble. And as I'm flipping through a few pictures, we'll point out a few things. But Barry brought some kind of unusual pictures. Of course, there were 2 teams on this, astronauts that worked together. I believe it was Massimino and
John Grunsmith?
Yeah, Grunsmith, and then...
well, we're getting ready to, the astronauts getting ready to remove the, I believe it's going to be the cost instrument from the shipping container. And
that we saw in your work office there.
What he would have to do now is lift open the cover, get and grab onto the instrument. Now, as I was saying before, that instrument is locked into that container, and the astronaut has to follow the procedure in reverse and be able to unlock that and be able to physically pull it out of the container and then install it into the Hubble Space Telescope.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's John Grunsfeld, is it?
Yes.
John Grunsfeld's being photographed from the cab.
I think he was on 3 of the 5 upgrade missions.
Yeah, he was
an experienced spacewalker with the Hubble.
Super guy, and very, very intelligent. He could be able to figure out things very, very, very quickly, and an excellent astronaut. I had the real pleasure of working with John Grunsfeld.
Their one astronaut, which I think it would be Massimino, is inside the Hubble doing something they never thought they would do, replacing some of the sensitive instruments, because this was this upgrade was in 2009. All right, so we're talking 14 years ago. The Hubble is in its 33rd year, so it's in its 19th year. All right. Of operation, and every instrument on there had been designed at least 20 years beforehand.
Correct,
right?
And then
this whole thing was designed in the 1980s, and here it was 2009 getting an upgrade.
With an upgrade with newer technology. I believe what Massimino is working on is that one of the gyros. Removing one of the gyros and removing it and installing a new one.
All right. There's Grunsfeld inside the doctor. There he is with Feutzel. Drew Feutzel there. Um, and
Looks like they were getting ready for a spacewalk, and they were going into the pressure chamber, getting ready for a spacewalk.
Another cool picture of the astronauts opening up things. They're all tethered up there. This was Atlantis' 30th mission. There's Megan MacArthur, who worked the remote manipulator arm with Grunsfeld.
Great lady.
And,
Great lady.
And her husband, Doug Hurley. No, but she's married to Bob Behnken of the Crew Dragon demo.
She was just recently up in the ISS.
Yes, she was.
Spent a good amount of time.
Yep.
On the ISS recently.
A mission that was over 10 years apart. There's Massimino.
Mike Massimino.
And another astronaut in the back there, probably Grunsfeld.
You know, all I have to do is just look at his face and I start to laugh.
Do you? Well, we'll have to get him on. I love this picture. What a gorgeous picture for the ages. Look at the reflection in the Hubble stainless steel there of the astronaut's legs suspended in space. That's just a...
It looks like they're approaching, it's either the door to the ACS or COS doors where the instruments are stored into the Hubble and getting ready to replace it. Or it's the wide field camera. I'm seeing the tool that's off to the right there, and it looks like it might be the removal tool for the wide field camera. I'm not sure.
Interesting. You recognize the tools there floating in space. Another beautiful, unusual picture of the astronauts on the remote manipulator arm that Megan is
operating from the crew quarters.
And there's Mike.
Yes, I mean, he's just so natural on in speaking that he crack jokes and he doesn't even realize it.
There's a parting shot where Megan had let go of it. The final, the last person to touch it, technically, with the hand there, and that's the grappling end of it. Marty, I'm familiar with looking at that because when we stand in line to get an astronaut autograph in the afternoon at 4 o'clock at the astronaut Atlantis Center, they have a model of the Hubble right there, and you're looking at the bottom there.
Now, we built and put an adapter on the bottom of the Hubble so that if we have a plan to go back to the Hubble and capture it and bring it back to Earth, or launch it further out into space, there's an adapter in the very bottom.
That's that round
section there. And that we would connect to and be able to, well, whatever NASA decides to do.
Yeah, I hope they decide to do something with it. Maybe one of the billionaires will. There's even talk that the billionaire Eric Isaacman, in his private company Polaris, he's the guy that paid for the St. Jude's flight a year ago with 4 astronauts, and he's going to space this summer and do a spacewalk.
Wow.
I heard him talk at Spacecom, and he is considering a mission to go get the Hubble and host it. Yeah.
Wow. If he wants to hire me, I'm available.
There you go. I'll let him know. I'll take pictures for you there, Barry. Well, Doug Forrest is enjoying this. He's an artist in Los Angeles. Christopher Mick's a solar system ambassador in Hudson, Wisconsin.
Oh, great. Nice. I would like to meet you.
Yeah. Robert Law is watching in Dundee, Scotland. Hey, Robert. Steve Hammer. He is a space journalist. Tom Celentano. Thank you, Tom. And I know Tom will be watching that auction Saturday. He always buys a lot of good stuff. Gary Gerald is a farmer up in Georgia. Ophelia Sauterel, thank you, young lady. She's in Normandy, France. I'll bet Cliff Watson will be watching and having his brekkie in Pomona, Australia. Tom Usiak and his brother Mark are in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Graham John Shaw and Cynthia Rossi enjoying this episode of Stay Curious with Barry Smith. Barry really enjoyed it. Here's another parting shot of Hubble. That's our background.
John Grunsfeld, shot from John Grunsfeld took when they were leaving.
The last looks at Hubble. It's further enough away to open up the door to let the light in. And there's Megan. After she released it, the last person to touch it. And what's that with you there, all bundled up in your bunny suit there? Look at you with the Webb telescope.
Yeah, notice my ground strap. Oh my God, that was all part of your suit whenever you went into that class 10,000 clean room. And I'm standing in front of the James Webb Telescope
with the NASA meatball reflecting, and that's neat shot there. I love that, Barry.
The reflection of it. You see that there's 18 mirrors there.
Now this is in
Goddard.
Okay.
Goddard Space Flight,
the
clean room there, and it is, again, as I'm pointing out to these designers, and the work that they do to be able to fit that huge telescope into a launch vehicle and send it out 2 million miles out there into space, be able to open it up.
Oh, that was so much fun to watch that first week of January. It was launched on Christmas Day. The origami in each segment of the mirror, 3 segments of that mirror as big as the Hubble's 9-foot mirror.
Each one of those mirrors can work individually. So each mirror can look at different parts of the universe at the same time and have it reflected into the mirror and sent back to Earth. But an add-on to this is that the science that's behind it, not only are they taking the photograph, but it's also measuring the atmosphere. The science that the Germans, I must give a lot of credit to the Germans and what they did for the James Webb. It was great to watch them work. They were very precise, disciplined. I was very impressed with the Germans. Then the technology that the Germans had in their near-cam, near-spec instrument, it was extraordinary. And the science that it's showing today as it keeps on looking out deeper and deeper into space, is just phenomenal.
It is, and revolutionizing astronomy is an understatement of both these telescopes as we look at them there. What a special time for astronomy to have both of these in operation. There was some question whether Hubble would even last till we got the Webb up.
That's right.
And now they're in tandem, and it's just amazing here. You've seen some amazing things, Barry. Probably none more amazing than 2 shuttles on a launch pad in the rainbow.
Yes, it's a very, very rare photograph that was taken professionally from NASA. And what we have here is 2 shuttles out at the launch pad, 39A and 39B. The reason for that is this is right after the Columbia accident.
2003.
And of course, we know what caused the Columbia accident was because of a tile that hit another part of the shuttle and opened a hole. And so NASA wanted to have a safety backup. So they prepped a second launch vehicle just in case there was a problem, perhaps another tile problem, so that they would send the second shuttle launch vehicle up, make the repairs, or if needed, have the astronauts from the accidented shuttle moved over to the safety of the second one and returned to Earth. So it's a very, very rare photograph of seeing 2 shuttles at the same time out at the launch pad.
Absolutely. Well, we have enjoyed a really great interview with you, conversation, Barry. I've enjoyed it a lot. Marty, have any other comments there from anybody? I know you've enjoyed what Barry's had to share today.
No comments.
Okay, good. Well, one thing, we really enjoyed you being a docent here. You're an excellent docent. Of course, anybody that would give a tour and have Barry give the tour with the knowledge he has is lucky. How did you find our museum? And we appreciate you embracing it. What do you think about it?
I was I was doing a docent up in Massachusetts on Cape Cod.
Mm-hmm.
The museum now is in Hyannis, and I told them that I was leaving and coming down here to Cape Canaveral, Cape Cocoa Beach, and they brought the name up, the American Space Museum, and I said, they told me to contact Anita, and I had to come over and take a look at it, and when I walked in, I said, wow, isn't this an awesome place? And I talked to Anita, and she said, come on aboard.
Anita Truex, our office manager, and coordinates all that. We appreciate her so much. She started out as a AARP working at the front desk in there. But yes, it's hard to explain to people the one-of-a-kind things we have, but almost everything you look at least over half of it, is the only place you're ever going to see it is here.
Like when I saw this paperwork done by von Braun back in 1943, and to see that it's done in German, and with the diagrams and the scientific graphing, it was all done by von Braun with his signature.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Exactly. Wow. Well, thanks a lot, Barry.
Hey, pleasure.
Well, I appreciate it. Is there something you'd like to share with our Stay Curious listeners that we hadn't asked you today?
I just encourage the children. Yeah, working on the James Webb. I worked under some really interesting astrophysicists, Babak Saif, who worked for John Mathers.
Mm-hmm.
He was awarded the Nobel Prize in astrophysics. John Mansfield always had said, children are our future. And if there's anything that I could really encourage, is those students that are in high school, going into college, use their gift of their brain and get yourselves into NASA or anything into space, because you're going to be rewarded many times over. You're going to really enjoy it.
Well, thank you, Barry. Those are great words. Two baby boomers here that were turned on to science in our elementary school days, and that's what we do every day here at our museum with our STEAM education. You see the energy as we have sometimes over 30 kids in 3 different sessions, 10 to 12 each session, learning some basics of STEAM education here, and hopefully getting turned on like you and me, Barry, to space. So thank you very much, Barry. Thank you, Marty. Incredibly easy Streamlabs show today. We may have our little issues corrected there, thanks to Trekkie Techie Jessica Galloway. Thank you, Jessica, for working hard with Marty to get our Streamlabs program back to snuff there. And we're going to have a great Thursday of space history tomorrow. And Friday, we're going to have the Chief Operating Officer of our hometown rocket company, Via Space, Rob Fabian, is going to talk about Via and their 3D rockets that they're making out of plastic, and also how you can join the Space Force Club, which I'm going to join it. Don't have to be in military or nothing. You can join the Space Force Club at Cape Canaveral, because Rob's the president of it. Rob Fabian on Friday. So, again, a terrific job, Barry Smith. Really enjoyed what you had to say today. We'll have Barry back for sure, and he is here most Wednesdays to give a tour. So if you're in town, check us out then. Until you see our museum in person, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.